This is the October 5th, 2016 Development Review Board meeting for the town of Shelburne. I'd like to call it to order. And before we get started, I want to make sure that anybody who is here who, hi Judy, it's okay, intends to give testimony or make any comment, they sign in with Mary Ann at the big wooden table. If you haven't done so, say, oh, it's going around, I'm sorry. So make sure you sign in, folks. If you don't sign in, we don't have a record that you've been here. And that's important, if you're, especially if you're going to give some testimony. The first order of business on our agenda is to take public comment from anybody who wishes to make a public comment at our hearing this evening. People are still filing in, so I'll give a minute or so. Okay. Seeing no one standing or making any indication that they wish to make a public comment, there are some people, confused faces in the audience.
Walked in, which are you talking about?
This is just an opportunity to make public comment on anything that you wish to comment on. If you wish to give testimony in connection with any of the two applications that we have on our agenda this evening, you may do so at the time we call that agenda item up on the agenda. So seeing that no one wishes to make a public comment, I'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes to approve. Our well, actually three in a way. Our site visit of September 7th to property on Webster Road, together with the meeting that followed that site visit. Before I take a motion to approve those minutes, I actually have some suggested changes to the minutes, if I can find them, so bear with me for a moment. It has to do with the section of our agenda dealing with the Champlain Housing Trust application, or notice of violation to be more precise. And it's going to be at the very end. Here we go. You with me, Marianne?
I don't have a copy, just tell me the page.
Okay, it would be page 10, under motion by Mary Kehoe, second by Judy Christensen, to accept reply briefs from the town and from CHT. After that, you have written discriminatory statements. I think it would be more precise to say continuing discussion.
I changed discriminatory statements to continue discussion.
Yes. I would say it is the third to last sentence in the first paragraph of that section states Title 24 also has a provision that prohibits the DRB from construing the bylaws in a way that would discriminate against the Fair Housing Act. I think instead of discriminate against, you should, that section should be replaced with the word violate. Those are my only two suggested changes, and if there's no opposition, I'll take a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Okay, several seconds there, all aye. All in favor say aye, sorry. Aye. The motion to approve both the minutes of our site visit and the meeting on September 7th carries. Does anyone have any changes or suggested edits to the minutes for the meeting on September 21st, at which I was not present? I want everybody to know where I was. I was in 40-degree temperature in the snow, so you should feel sad for me that I wasn't here.
Is there a location on the plan?
Wyoming.
Oh, makes sense.
So, do I have any changes to the September 21st minutes as prepared? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Any second?
Second.
Having been seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Actually, Mary Ann, you should show that I abstained from voting. I wasn't at the meeting and I didn't review the minutes, so. That brings us to item 4 on the agenda. It's application SUB 03-04R9. It's the application by Eric Morris for reapproval of a final plan amendment to expand the building envelope on Lot 6 at Crescent Ridge. The property is located at 370 Monarch Road, and it's located in the Conservation District. Is there anyone in the audience this evening to testify or make statements about this application? I'm going to guess that you're Eric Morris. Yes, come to the microphone. State your name, please.
Eric Morris.
Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Why don't you tell us a little something about your application?
We had to do a building envelope change to build the barn that we built. And we went through this process, and there was a miscommunication between the engineer and I about who was supposed to do the final filing within the 180 days. And I was supposed to do it, and I thought he was supposed to do it. And when we went for a refinance, my attorney discovered that it had never been recorded. So I'm here for reapproval, because I don't think anyone who was on the board back then is on the board now.
I was.
Okay, Mark was, so
Okay.
makes sense that you guys would have to reapprove it, so that's what I'm here for. The gist of it is that we did a building envelope shift to make room for the barn that we built. The barn's been there for 8 years now, so hopefully this will work. Because I'm not moving
We
the barn.
shall see. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Kate, anything to add?
Nope, that looks good.
Do any of my colleagues have anything to add? There's some furious note writing going over to the left.
We just had a minor thing for Kate on that, and this might be better suited for later, but on the application, it refers to itself as R2, the minutes refer to it as R9, and the decision itself refers to it as R3.
Excellent, okay.
That's why we
There's
were
been a
all-
lot of revisions,
Yeah.
hence the R9, but okay.
Yeah, because it was a subdivision, every time there was something like this, it's
Yeah.
a basically a
It's an
final
R.
plat amendment, and there's this much paperwork for this much stuff, so.
Well, I'm impressed that you all caught that.
Yeah.
Me
Well, we've
too.
been chatting.
All right, we're going with
What,
R9.
R9?
We're going with R9.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Any questions or comments from members of the board? May I have a motion to finalize the record and then to close the hearing?
So moved.
Any seconds?
Second?
All right, all in favor of finalizing the record and closing the hearing with an indication of approval?
Aye.
Aye. The double motions pass.
Okay.
You may proceed. Good
Try
luck.
to file it this time. Thanks.
Okay, now the next matter on our agenda this evening is application SUB 16-02. It's the reconsideration of a sketch plan application by the Snyder Custom Homes Company, or LLC. The revised plan includes 91 housing units, which is a mix of single-family, carriage, and townhouse home-style units on 53.5 acres of land on the west side of Spear Street, the part of the Quiniesca Golf Course. It includes 24 acres of open space. The property is located at 0 Spear Street on the west side. In a residential district, the Storm Water Overlay District and the Floodplain Water Course Overlay District. Can I have a show of hands, please, of who is present to testify about this application? Okay, we've got about 4 or 5 or 6 people. Unless there's any objection, I would like to start with the applicant to get an overview of the application, and then we can go from there. Mr. Snyder, if you...
Mary, it's not on until 7:20. Do you want to give everybody a few minutes, or you just want to go ahead?
Oh, that's right,
We're running a little ahead.
I think we're going to keep going, so we'll
Yeah.
give folks, if people come in, I think we'll be okay. If anyone has any questions about the application, I'll let them proceed. I would state that I know the Natural Resources Committee is actually meeting now, and they wanted to come to this part of the meeting as well. So they're probably not going to show up until the scheduled time on the agenda. Hopefully, there won't be too much replication, but if you want to start, Mr. Snyder. You state your name, please, for the record,
Yep, Chris Snyder with Snyder Homes.
and would you stand and raise your right hand? Sorry. Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, sir?
I do.
I do. And who's this?
Andy Rowe with Lemmer and Dickinson.
Can you spell your last name for our keeper?
L-E-M.
Okay, she knows who you are.
We're right.
Thank you very much for taking the time to consider our revised sketch plan proposal for the Quiniesca neighborhood. Would like to just recognize two members of our team. We have Andy Rowe, who's already announced himself, and then also Tina Scharf, a wildlife consultant, is here as well. I look forward to getting comments and questions tonight about our revised sketch plan application. Just a little history on the how we've gotten to where we are tonight. The first piece is that we've used the decision and also the recommendations from our previous hearings to really help guide us through the revisions of the neighborhood. We believe that this plan meets the land development regulations that are currently in place in this area, but also in the town of Shelburne. As a background of the work that has been completed, we did complete a review of the town land development regulations. We completed a tree survey. We completed a wildlife survey. We revised the sketch plan multiple times. I think this is probably H or J or K plan, so from the time that we met last. And then we've also met with the town staff twice to review different components of the proposed neighborhood plan. This proposed sketch plan provides a mix of housing types. There are three housing types. We have single-family homes on the northerly boundary. We have carriage homes in the middle and southeastern portion of the property, and then we have townhomes along the western portion of the property. There are a total of 26 single-family homes. This is increased from 22. Carriage homes, there's a total of 38, and this is increased from 32. And then the number of townhomes is 27, and that has been reduced from 48. In terms of the orientation of the home, we did hear from the Design Review Board several comments about the orientation of the homes, and so you'll notice that we have revised and created what we call sort of an interior streetscape so that the homes face Spear Street in the south portion of the property. There are 4 to 5 homes that do back up to Spear Street, but certainly can be landscaped around them as we get further along to address any concerns. We also took note of the open space comments during the last decision and discussion, and as we have increased the amount of open space, and there are currently 24 acres, and that is an increase from 19 acres. They're also a bit more contiguous, and so they're in the western portion of the property, majority of it in the existing treed area. And it really, the revised plan utilizes a lot of the open space that already exists on the golf course. The next piece that we definitely addressed was the trees and existing trees, and so we did a tree survey, and you'll note that that there's quite a few more trees on the western portion of the boundary, and let me just grab this plan. And this was part of the packet. You'll notice that there's quite a few more trees in the western portion of the property here. We've also identified an area in the center core in between the single-family homes. We've also shifted the entrance to the north to maintain the existing trees that are in that area. We've also have some other little small spots. These are existing trees where they're darker green. Then there's also a portion of trees in between the carriage homes and the townhomes that has been kept in this proposal. And then there's also a reduction of the impact in the southerly portion of the neighborhood to stay out of those trees as well. Density, which was another concern. I guess we don't have a density plan, but it is part of the packet.
It's in, behind another one.
Oh, it's behind another one? Okay. Is it behind this one? So Andy created this density plan and does show that the property using the current land development regulations, it would be allowed for 101 residential units on the property. And it's important to note that the density considered is per the current zoning, not past zoning of the additional neighboring parcels. There is new zoning that has been put in place, and this has been designed to have this type of density in this area of town. I'd also like to address the growth rate.
Oh, wait a minute, so that's not the current plan though?
That is not the current plan.
Right.
That's a
That was-
density plan.
That was when you had the other proposal?
No, this is actually just a true density plan
Oh, I see
to
what you're
show
saying.
what could be done on the property.
If it was just straight based
Subdivision
Yeah.
rules and regulations.
on that?
The current plan is this plan here
Okay, right.
that addresses that, but it does,
I don't
Guess
think
that's
you can
gonna-
put more than one up
I
there.
guess not.
This is actually the old one.
That's old, yeah, I'm not gonna. So this plan does have a total of 91 homes, so it is a reduction from the original proposal of 9 homes, which obviously allows for more open space and also allowed us to save some of the existing trees that are on the property. In terms of the growth rate, the neighborhood is within the goals of the town's comprehensive plan, and that essentially the homes will be built over a 4 to 5 year period of time. And in it, I will say that this neighborhood does not eliminate the possibility of other homes or other neighborhoods being permitted within that time frame and still be within the town's proposed growth rate. As I stated before, we believe that this does meet the land development regulations and that we are in conformance of those land development regulations. We are here today to basically open up and have any comments or questions or concerns about the proposal. There's definitely a lot more information in our submittal, and certainly be willing to answer any questions about that for myself, also for Andy, or if Tina is here as well to answer any questions.
Any questions from members of the board? Sure, go right ahead.
So given your current plan, in terms of phasing, so you're talking about over a 4 to 5 year period, where would you start?
I would assume that we're going to probably start in the northerly portion of the property, where we have can come in here in this street section and then build both single-family home and carriage homes, and then work our way down to the south to some of these other homes in other sections of the neighborhood.
So even though it's a phased plan, would you be planning to put streets in all the way, or are you just gonna phase the streets as well?
We will just phase the streets as well. We'll go for a certain section and then fill up that section and then go to the next section.
Right, and phase your infrastructure as you
As they go.
go, as opposed to putting in more infrastructure in anticipation of
That's right. We'll probably build the infrastructure assuming, what we probably will do for the next year to 2 years, and then go and do the next year to 2 years of development of the road infrastructure.
Alex, any
Yeah.
questions?
This is a little more straightforward. What are the pink dots versus your green dots on there? Any difference between them?
Just a different type of potential tree or
Okay.
landscaping.
Yeah. And then I know we heard about this the first time you guys came in here, but the wildlife impact. Would you be able to touch on that a little bit?
Do you want me to do that now?
Yeah.
Oh,
That would
sure.
be. Or I don't know if that messes
You
with it.
stand and give us your name, and then I'll swear you in.
Oh, my name is Tina Scharf. I'm consulting wildlife biologist.
Ms. Scharf, can you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth in connection with this application?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for
Do
hearing
you want to
me.
make a presentation, or did you have a presentation to make, Ms. Scharf, or did you want to answer Mr. Von Stange's question first?
Well, that's kind of a general question, so, but I think I can cover it fairly quickly. The open land that's already golf course is not particularly valuable as wildlife habitat because it's a golf course, the grass is short, there's not a lot of cover for wildlife. I think that's probably not surprising. There are a few trees out in the golf course, which maybe robins nest in, but all in all, it's not very rich wildlife habitat, and actually open meadow almost never is. Then there's an area of shrub back here that has a lot of honeysuckle shrubs in it, which is unfortunate because those are invasive species, but they do provide some cover for small mammals and red foxes hunting those small mammals and that sort of thing, and they make berries that the birds can eat. That type of habitat is very ephemeral. It's in the process of growing up into woodlands. And so it would probably, if it wasn't cut or managed in any way, it would grow up into woodland in another 20 years, probably. So I think the area that's of most interest to people in terms of wildlife is the woodland. And I know that Chris and Andy moved a lot of the housing out of the woodland. And correct me, I think it's still 3.25 acres, Andy, that you were going to, that would be, it'd be reduced. That's what I have in my report anyway, and I think that was what we had come up with. There were 14.5 acres of woodland, and the present plan is to remove 3.25 along, just sort of right in here. And then there's this sort of long, I don't know if we have a good satellite photo of it. Oh, thank you, perfect. So this would be the part that would be removed here, and then also this area, which is, it narrows down to a finger right here in between the shrub and the golf course itself. And that's, it's almost a hedgerow, it's quite narrow. And it ends, and then there's just some open ground here, so there's not really connection. So that part would be reduced. So the developer wants to maintain all of that, and there's a no cutting, is that what you, I had seen somewhere, Chris? That there would have agreed to a no cutting rule in that area to keep it wooded. So in terms of wildlife habitat in that woodland, it's interesting, I'm from Lincoln, and we have a lot of woods in Lincoln, and if this particular site, if I was looking at it from the perspective of someone in Lincoln or Huntington where there's a lot of woodland, 14 acres is not a lot of land. I know here in Shelburne it is much more valuable as wooded land because you don't have that much. So it's kind of a qualitative difference. So I think the Conservation Commission mentioned a corridor, uses a corridor. There's already a lot of development right here. There's a street, you can just see the edge of this street here, and there's a house there. Oh, thank you, Andy, it's very useful. Oh yes, thank you. So from a landscape point of view, there was this sort of long area of woodland in between kind of the lake and a lot of farmland to the east. And when I looked at this from the landscape level, I thought, boy, it's a shame that Juniper Ridge was built, because it really filled up a lot of what was there. That's a pretty big chunk of woodland. But given that, there's this piece coming down through here, and this property that is being proposed is very approximate, but that's the approximate western boundary. So it's just this little chunk here on the edge of this larger area, which I understand has been conserved by the town, or at least is owned by the town. Is that a correct statement?
Which part?
This area to the west of the Quiniosca property,
Yeah.
I believe, is owned by the town. And
The
is,
town owns a portion, and then Boulder Hill has some open space
oh,
back
okay.
there as well, so I think it's a
Okay.
mixture.
So it is contiguous to this area. So as a corridor, I can't say that it's fabulous, because it's cut off in a lot of places, like there and there and there. But it is pretty much all Shelburne has. So sometimes I'm very happy I don't have to make these decisions. But I don't think it's great corridor. And given that, I will also say that there is a lot of wildlife in Shelburne nonetheless. There's bobcat and coyote and red fox and all of the above. And they learn to move around between buildings. And I've done a lot of tracking in Williston and South Burlington. And I'm amazed, and I hear stories of people with bobcats going right around people's houses and looking for small mammals. You've had that happen too. See, and I have pictures of somebody with a bobcat with her 3 kittens on their patio, and she's teaching them how to hunt. So animals do learn to get along in suburban areas. It's not ideal, but they do. And it's not so much the buildings themselves that are the problem. Obviously, during construction, there's a lot of disturbance. So the construction phase is a different thing. But once things are constructed, it's not the houses themselves. It's more the activity. And I have kind of a thing about dogs. So I don't know if people go walking up into this townland with their dogs loose, but that's really really, I think, one of the biggest issues with any development is having dogs. And so, is there a leash law in?
Yes.
And is it under control at all times, or is it in hand?
I have no idea.
Don't know. Because under control, sometimes people think if they let the dog loose, then it's under control, but it's not necessarily under control. But anyway, so that's just something to think about in terms of this development. I know that Chris is open to suggestions about dog control on this
Well,
development.
the town has an under control at all times, but it doesn't say it has to be a leash.
Right.
So a person could say, my dog is under my control, there's no leash there.
Right. And it may or may not be.
That's right.
Yeah. I was in Williston one time at their park behind Lake Iroquois, and there was a big sign that said, keep your dog under control at all times. And I was off looking at some wildlife sign, and this dog came galumphing over to me, this huge dog, and I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And the owner was calling it, and it was not under control. It was not under control. So I always, actually, when I have the chance, encourage you all of the town officers, to have strong dog ordinances, and then you're covered. You don't have to think about it for each development. So I think that's about it. That's all I have to say. I don't know if you want to ask further questions.
I would like to get a little specific. So the areas where they seem to be cutting, I remember from our site visit, were pretty dead, like the trees and just the vegetation there. So can you speak specifically to whether or not the difference between cutting this area that's like largely dead, without a vibrant life, versus is that going to have a different impact than if they were cutting elsewhere? Is it less impactful because it's dead life?
That whole area actually has been highly impacted by deer. So once you get past the sort of little wall of honeysuckle that's right up against the golf course, you walk into the woods and you can see for 100 yards. And that is not ideal for wildlife. There's no cover. It's not an easy place to hide. And that's happened because Shelburne has a lot of deer. And so it's not ideal habitat, even though it is wooded. I'm not sure that addresses your question, Alex,
Yeah,
specifically.
it does.
But it's pretty, it's kind of depauperate is a word that I might use. But it is trees, so it's better than no trees. There are some hickories and shagbark hickories and red oaks there, which create hard mast so probably turkeys go in there, and of course the deer will eat those too. But overall, in terms of a beautiful forest, it's been impacted. It's been pretty heavily impacted. Any other question, Alex?
No, I'm good, thank
Any
you.
board members have any questions of Mr. Snyder or Ms. Scharf?
Yes. I was just curious, the trees that you're showing as being saved, I was wondering if you had done any, grading studies to verify that, these masses, wouldn't be impacted by kind of grading and building the subdivisions. Is it realistic to keep the stands of trees that you intend to?
That are depicted on the
Yeah. Yep.
site plan, the sketch plan.
Sure.
So, we have not graded the site,
Okay.
but we have looked at, large contiguous areas, in the places where the trees are shown to be preserved
Yeah.
are largely fairly big groups, with the exception of some along the back of the carriage homes that are closest to Spear Street.
Yep.
And we've also tried to be conservative in the areas that we've sort of estimated that can be saved. They're far enough away from a back lot line where the limit
Yeah.
of the yard grading would be, or the street. So I think we're fairly confident that the trees that we're showing there can actually be saved. I think there's also, a few other spots where there might be a single tree or two or a group of three, more the onesie-twosies that might also to be able to be saved, once that fine grading is identified.
Yeah.
But, for purposes of the sketch plan, we were looking at larger contiguous areas in the larger groups that could be saved really for sure, that were
Yeah.
beyond the limits of the mass grading that would occur because of the road and the lots.
Yep. Okay.
Any additional questions of Mr. Snyder or Ms. Scharf or
Andy?
Andy? Doesn't get a last name.
I guess just to follow up on Tina's discussion, she did have a report, and the
I think we have that.
exhibit we were looking at that showed the limits of the clearing was just a blow-up of the exhibit she had on page 2 of her report, so.
Now, does anyone in the audience at this point in time have any additional questions of Andy, Chris, or Ms. Scharf? Questions in the nature of examination to elicit testimony? If you do, please come and approach and state your name.
Excuse me, my name's Andrew Everett.
Mr. Everett, do you raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth in connection with any testimony that you may give?
I do.
You may ask questions.
So my question has to do with the stormwater. It's designated in what I read as to capture a 25-year event, and we live directly downhill in Boulder Hill, and we've seen a few 25-year events already in the 5 years I've been here, and we know that water has flowed from the course into the neighborhood, with additional blasting, moving, et cetera. I know in your first presentation you talked about turning one retention pond into 2 or 3, but would love to understand how the plan could be improved to capture an event that's a lot larger than a 25-year plan, because I think there's a lot of people downhill that would be unhappy if that happened.
So that's a question, and I need you to know to whom you're addressing the question.
I would think it would be to Andy, since he was the one who presented the
Okay.
drainage plans last time.
Okay. Is that the only question you're going to have, sir, do you think?
I think so.
Okay. Andy?
So I'm glad he made reference to the last time we were here. I guess just to start in terms of runoff from the golf course is today. The main goal of the golf course is to get as dry as possible, as soon as possible, so that people can get out there and play. The the pond that's on the golf course now at the south end provides little, if any, detention. The only reason any detention would be provided in that pond today is if it's been a very long, fairly dry spell where you haven't had any base flow coming in there from the subsurface drains. Any water that typically comes into that pond goes right out. So if there's a fairly large storm event that's resulting in a fairly large volume of runoff, it's coming off the golf course, through that pond, and right down through the gully to Boulder Hill. And what we had committed to the board the last time we were here was to design the stormwater system not only to meet the state regulations, not only to meet the town regulations, but to go and to design it to the 100-year storm so that we were addressing the full range of storm events. And I guess my main point is, you know, with this development, there's going to be a comprehensive stormwater management system. With the golf course that's there now, there's really nothing. The concept is get the water off the course as quickly as possible and down the hill.
So should I understand your testimony to be that things would actually improve?
We believe that's the case, particularly in the Boulder Hill neighborhood, because right now the golf course runoff is getting down through that neighborhood as quickly as possible, and that will not be the case with the neighborhood stormwater development system. Treatment and detention would be provided on site, which is not the case with the golf course today.
Even though you would be adding impervious surface area by virtue of the 91 or so roofs that are taking up space on what's otherwise at this point in time grass.
There would be an increase in impervious surface, so overall there would be an increase in runoff. But if you look at the terrain and the surfaces that are on the golf course, a lot of those areas aren't holding water for very long, if at all. And a lot of them, because they're so highly managed, I'm not going to say that they're similar to pavement, but you know, they're much more closer to pavement than they would be a typical lawn area. You know, the green, for example, and other areas that have an extensive underdrain system. That area is retarding the runoff flow somewhat, but again, the goal of the golf course is to get that water off the greens and off the fairways and not have it puddle, and to get it off the playing surface and off the site.
Would the applicant be amenable to a third-party stormwater review?
Yes, we had talked about that with staff, and they had suggested in past instances that the town has had South Burlington do that review, whether it's South Burlington or another party of the board's choosing. We think that would be useful not only for your purposes, but for ours as well.
Are the roads going to have curbs, or is it sheet flowing, you know, off the road?
I believe what the public works standards would require and what we had discussed with the board was a street cross-section that's very similar to Boulder Hill.
Okay.
We were proposing a 26-foot wide street. We'd love to get feedback from the board. I know the fire department would prefer 28. And then an 8-foot wide paved path, again, very similar to the Boulder Hill cross-section with a paved path on one side, slightly narrower at 8 feet than the 10-foot path that would be proposed along Spear Street, and then a 26 or a 20-foot, 8-foot wide curved road cross-section.
Staying on the 26 versus 28 feet, how does the applicant feel about moving up to 28 feet?
I think it's going to be a recommendation of staff and a board decision. We'd prefer to reduce the amount of impervious surface.
Yeah, I'd rather see it less.
I mean, it's less initial cost, it's less runoff, it's less long-term in terms of maintenance.
Is there a plan for on-street parking, or is that the reason for the width, or is that mainly for?
I believe it was with a piece of fire apparatus getting set up in a vehicle, whether it's a fire vehicle or something else, having enough ample room to get by while set up.
So I understand that the golf course itself, in a sense, is an impervious surface already. I mean, things just run off it pretty quickly. There's a lot of ledge there. There's thin soil. There's a lot of it's high. It's going to go down. Gravity's going to make that happen. So I think what people are really concerned about is you're adding roofs, you're adding roads, and it just feels like that's gonna make it run faster. Fairly simply thinking that way. So what would be the actual mitigation techniques that you would be using? You don't have to tell us all of that now, because you have to do engineering to do that, but I like the idea of a third-party review for sure, because I think that is a really good idea, no matter what, to help calm people, to know that there's, you know, a lot of thought being put into this so that they can feel that the water's not running down into their basements any faster than it is right now. But what would be some of the mitigation techniques that you would use in the stormwater system that you are envisioning that would help calm people's concerns about roofs and roads versus the existing golf course?
So the two most significant additions would be modifying the existing stormwater pond and the addition or expansion of that pond to the west. So where there is little to no detention being provided in that existing pond, that would change. There would be a detention facility here that, while the runoff is going to move off the site,
And
off
that's
the
low
developed
end
site.
anyway. That's the low end anyway.
Yes,
That's the
right,
line
everything
for this
is,
area.
Yeah.
That's correct. It basically.
yep, from roughly that area.
Here, it flows in this direction, and
And
from
then
about
down.
here, it goes this direction, and there would be a stormwater detention area located at that
At that
intersection.
end too.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, so there would be a stormwater pond or series of ponds on the south end, and then one to pick up the north end as well. And, you know, while we may have swales or, you know, disconnection or runoff elsewhere in the development, those are going to be the two main features that are slowing down the runoff as it's collected on site, but before it leaves the site.
And you're adding more trees to what was golf course, which itself should.
Yeah, right, there'll definitely be landscaping around the individual homes as well as street trees.
Well, I'm interested in that because that could help the soil percolate better than it does right now. Right now, it doesn't really have any way of percolating because there's so much open grass. Thin grass on a ledgy surface that goes down.
With a lot of subsurface drains as well.
Right.
And while there'll be subsurface drains along the road, there won't be those subsurface drains.
So
There'll be
you're-
subsurface drains around the homes, but not in the yard areas, similar to the golf course setup now.
So I'm asking, the landscaping plan itself would be part of the mitigating factors on the stormwater?
Yeah, I mean, all of those, there's a number of things, and all of them help. You know, whether it's grass swales, disconnection or runoff, adding landscaping around the homes, the street trees, they all kind of are part of the plan. Some of them aren't always thought of as stormwater mitigation measures, but as you said, they are.
Yeah, particularly mature canopy trees can
Yes.
actually hold a lot of water in the canopy, which
Yeah,
is,
and the last thing you
getting
want is
more
open
attention.
grassland
Yeah.
like it is right now, so there could be some improvement that way.
Okay, are there any other more questions or comments from the members of the board? And then we'll move on to those in the audience who are
Yeah.
patiently waiting.
When we're talking about the northernmost detention pond over there, do you guys have any landscaping suggestions? Because that's like right in the middle of the development.
We talked about that as the sketch plan was being developed. And I think there certainly is an opportunity to landscape the perimeter. You know, you can separate the forebay from the main cell of the pond and do some attractive things. You know, the main goal is for it to be a stormwater feature, but that's not to say that it can't be landscaped to be an attractive feature of the neighborhood as well, especially given that, you know, that's going to be one of the first things you see as you come in the northerly entrance.
What I like to hear.
Any other comments or questions from the members of the board?
I have one question. Have you taken into consideration the site distance for the southerly curb cut?
We did, and we did, well, actually, Andy took measurements of that, and it certainly meets the requirements.
Before we proceeded with moving that southerly entrance, we checked the site distances, yes.
Okay.
That was a concern that we wanted to address before we even considered it.
Well, it's across from the other entrance into the parking lot on the south side of the clubhouse.
It's just a little bit further south.
Further
So
down.
it's a little further south.
Yeah.
Further south, but it actually is just beyond the crest of that hill site-wise, so.
It's about 100,
You can see it.
it's a little more than, it's about 125 feet
it? Yeah.
south, so it's
Yeah.
pretty steep right there, so.
I actually stood out there probably 3 weeks ago just to see if I felt that standing I could see up, because it's a concern, obviously, if we have a neighborhood and you have neighbors that, homeowners that can't see to the north, and, you know, I could see the car, you know, the windshield basically, not maybe the hood, but I could definitely see the windshield just standing there.
Any other questions or comments from the members of the board? And I do have, I know a number of members of the audience or public who have come tonight who have questions and concerns, so I want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to voice them. I'll start with this gentleman in the green t-shirt. If you'd like to approach the microphone, please, and give us your name and raise your right hand so that you can be sworn if you intend to give testimony.
Yes, I do. My name is Greg Shover.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth in connection with any testimony you give, Mr.
I do.
Shover? Go ahead.
So I live on 53 Webster Lane, and the storms that we have gotten, not this year, but over the last 2 or 3 years, have flooded our lawn and our house. And the water is coming down from Boulder Hill. And so what I've done some checking is that I believe there's a 24-inch culvert that comes out of Boulder Hill and comes down to our property on Webster Lane to an 18-inch culvert. And so we can't consume any more water. Where our yard is flooded, I remember, I believe it was last year's storm that washed out all the stones on the east side of Boulder Hill, that all the stones came flying down. Goodrich was there. We helped move all that stuff, but our yard was completely flooded. Our basements were flooded. You know, so I paid a lot of money in taxes, and I can't see how, you know, you guys are adding all these impervious surfaces, and you know, you have your retention pond. Where is that going to go? Where is it going to feed out? It looks like it's just feeding right out to Boulder Hill and then coming down to our place. You know, I pay a lot of money in taxes in the town of Shelburne. I couldn't sell my house those 3 days because it was getting flooded. Up over our road, it was 8 inches. We couldn't consume any more water.
So is the question, sir, where is the water going to go? If
Yeah,
there's a
where's
big
the water
storm?
going to go from those 2 lower ponds?
Would you feel better, just out of curiosity, if there was a third-party stormwater
doubt.
review of, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Snyder, if you want to respond to the question.
Absolutely. Well, I think you're right, and I have heard concerns from the people at Boulder Hill, from the homeowners association there, about there is the bend in the existing stormwater outlet from the Quinniasca Golf Course down to Boulder Hill, and we have said that that would be part of our review of the stormwater system, is to potentially address that so that the bend isn't there and doesn't wash out. That's number one. Number two is that by having the pond and then the detention system, what's going to happen is during the big storms or larger storms where there's lots of water coming down, it actually is going to hold it and release it at slower paces so that it won't happen in a flood, but that there will be an outlet structure and that would retain it and allow it to flow more smoothly through. So yes, it's still going to go there because water flows downhill, but it does address the amount at once.
Thank
Does
you.
that?
Before you continue, I forgot in the beginning of this hearing to make sure that there are no members of the board who have any conflicts of interest. And Mr. McCray and I talked about it because Mr. McCray does live in Boulder Hill. And so I think it's probably important that we get that on the record so that there's no problem later. Yeah, yeah, so did I. So I would like Mr. McCray to address that, and then any follow-up questions can be asked.
Well, I'm a current resident of the Boulder Hill neighborhood below this proposed development, although I don't feel that that would prevent me from
Being
acting impartial.
Okay. Do you have any problems with that, Mr. Snyder?
No.
Boulder Hill,
Could you use the mic?
You need to use the microphone?
Boulder Hill is, their runoff is quick because they're on a hill. It's just, we're down on the flats.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to address the board.
Okay.
And
Sorry.
That's okay.
We're on the flats down there, and so we just consume all the water. So I'm wondering if we have to upgrade our stormwater system. You know, that's what, and we put in 260 feet of stormwater system there. And it's just the impact, if we have to upgrade ours, who's gonna help pay us for that? Because no doubt, there's more water gonna be coming from this development down to our property. I know you can shake your head and say no, but I pay $12,000 a year in property taxes in this town from just my house. And I wanna make sure that I'm keeping my value,
That's a legitimate concern.
5 years down the road.
Mary?
Yeah.
Just one follow-up that kind of goes hand in hand. Stormwater retention ponds are wonderful at first. But then there's this thing that happens. After the developer leaves, they don't get cleaned out. And they start growing up. They look like wonderful wildlife habitat because birds love them. And then people love them because the birds are there. So what would be, let's assume for now that the stormwater, that these retention ponds are built and do the job they're supposed to do. I think there's another question that goes with what's the long-term plan to make sure that they're maintained in a way that they don't fill up and therefore they can't fill up with, reeds and, water-loving plants that just can't wait to be there. How does that work in terms of abutting owners or downhill owners that, want to be there for the next 25, 50 years, but the people that are now living there have no clue? That would be one concern.
So I can tell you that there will be a stormwater permit that we would need to get by the state of Vermont.
Sure.
And that permit lasts a total of 5 years and would need to be updated and maintained, and there'd be inspections.
Well,
It's a longer period.
it might, it's initially issued for a 5-year period, but the duration of the permit's sort of irrelevant. It has an annual inspection requirement, and the inspection could potentially be done by, a savvy homeowner. But there's also typically a 3-year restatement of compliance, so that even if the homeowners are doing the annual inspection, every 3 years, they've got to get somebody that does it on a more regular basis. That, the state requires a licensed designer, an engineer, a landscape architect, somebody that is looking at these things on more than a one system per year basis. So number one, there's an annual inspection requirement. Number two, I think Chris can attest that when they set up the bylaws for the association and the capital fund, that they plan for regular maintenance, and then obviously the homeowners association has to follow through on that and do the regular maintenance. But I can say that you bring up a good point. There's sort of two things that can fill up a stormwater pond. One is sediment. After the neighborhood is complete, if you're not getting a lot of road sand in the winter and the site is stabilized, meaning there's no ongoing erosion, the amount of sediment that makes it into the stormwater system is fairly small. You've got the opportunity for the catch basins to collect that sediment, and then you've got the opportunity for the forebay at the entrance to the pond to collect any additional sediment that makes it that far. But the other thing that can be a problem is just the buildup of the organic mat. The cattails or reeds, arrowhead, whatever happened to be growing in there, doesn't live through the winter. It dies, and after a period of time, you just get that organic material that builds up. And it's really a function of the pond. Some ponds need to be cleaned out, maybe 8 or 10 years of that organic matter, even though you've got no sediment coming in. Others might make it 15 or even more before that's needed.
But it would be part of the association responsibility, and it would be written right into the bylaws that they would have to maintain that.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Judy. Any questions, any additional questions from the members of the audience? Raise your right hand and give us your name first.
Tony
Okay.
Supple.
Ms. Supple, can you raise your right hand, and do you swear or affirm that any testimony you may give will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. I live at 239 Pearson Drive. And
Keep
my
your voice
question.
up so everybody can hear you.
Oh, my question has to do with blasting.
Blasting, yes?
Yes, and I'm just wondering if you can address how much, if any, blasting will be required and where it's likely to be.
So there will definitely be blasting required. As we've noted, there's ledge, and at the site visit, we noticed that there's rock sitting at the top of the ground. So we will definitely be blasting. We'll be blasting for the foundations of the homes, as all the homes will have full foundations. And around, just to address that concern, when we do blast, for those homes and install the foundation, there's a drainage system that is placed underneath the home, and also a way for the water, surface water, to get to that drainage plane below the home, and then it is piped into the stormwater system. So water that we sort of create a bathtub, but we also create the drain for the water to go out of that bathtub. So that's one area. Obviously, the storm water lines, the sewer lines, and potentially water lines, depending upon the depth of the ledge, may have to be blasted. And then there would be trenches and stone that are placed around them. I can tell you that in the past, when we've had to blast, we find that water finds that cavity and travels in that cavity and goes to sort of the lowest point. That I think, throughout the entire property, we're going to have that, and it's going to end up in the road under drains, in the footing under drains around the houses. Andy, do you have anything else?
I could have a follow-up question.
Sure.
Will you be checking with homeowners in the adjacent surrounding areas to make sure there isn't damage to their homes that your insurance would cover?
Absolutely. So any blasting contractor that we hire is required to have insurance. And there's a distance, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's pretty far away, and we at least 250 to 500 feet away from where we're blasting. We'll do a survey of all of the homes prior to us doing any work, and they'll take videos of the homes and ensure that that if anything does happen, that the insurance would cover any repairs needed. We have blasted a lot in my 20 years here of building and developing, and I can tell you that I've actually never been contacted after the blasters have left about any claims on any homes. So it is something that we are cognizant of, and we do check and make sure that we're not going to negatively impact any of the neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Supple. Does anybody else wish to give testimony? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do. Just a quick follow-up on that. On the map, how many homes, do you guys have any rough idea, how many homes fall within that 250 to 500 feet area that your contractors will be surveying?
I would bet that it's going to be a couple of homes along this northerly boundary line, and depending upon the grading, there's probably a couple of homes at Boulder Hill, although the grade is so substantial there, but it's horizontal distance. I think that would probably be the homes that we would need to do.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have, on the board, any other questions or concerns from members of the board? Members of the audience, does anybody else wish to ask questions of either, of any, I guess I should say, of the three witnesses who have testified or provide any testimony? Okay, seeing no hands or anybody wishing to come forward, at this point, what I would like to do is move to continue the hearing to a date certain by virtue of the fact that members of the, did you have additional? Members of the Natural Resources Committee were meeting tonight and wanted to be at this meeting and wanted to have the opportunity to comment on this application for reconsideration, and they've not had that comment, that opportunity, and I wish in the interest of due process to give them that opportunity. So
I will second that motion.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries, and I would need a date certain from the administrator.
Looking at the
She has a
second.
phone holder person for her.
Yes. So the 16th of November will be the second meeting of the month, and I think that will be the right time to
Is
do
that
it.
good for everybody? Excellent.
Of October or November?
November. Okay. So the meeting will be continued. Mr. Snyder, it's not too late for you to make a comment if you wish.
Just a
I
question.
want to make sure you can come to that.
Yes, I'll be here, no problem. I guess, is there a need, or does the board request that Tina come to that meeting?
No.
Or, no? Okay, great. And are there any other,
You might, Mr. Snyder, wish to have Ms. Scharf available by telephone, because it is possible that members of the committee or anybody else who might come would have questions for her, but it is possible for her to testify by telephone.
okay,
And we can, honestly, an iPhone works pretty well, and we could get her on and, train a microphone onto the phone, and she could testify in that fashion.
okay, thank you.
Are we okay?
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, well, thank you very much for coming this evening. We'll see you again on the 16th of November. Everybody will be wearing coats, sadly. The next matter on our agenda is any other business. Is there any other business that we need to take up this evening?
It was the request of the town manager that you guys put in your input for the audio visual. If you have any comments for it, concerns.
I didn't get that particular handout.
Yeah.
Unless I missed it.
You can have mine. I handed them out, but it might have
It's in
gotten lost
your-
in a pile.
It's in your little pile of stuff.
Did you find it?
Yes.
Not right on your.
$18,000.
Oh,
There are a few
maybe not
different
then.
tiers
I'll show you if
of
I'm able to
upgrades.
find mine. Oh, sweet.
Yeah, I looked at these, but I didn't see the prices.
Oh,
But your joke was very funny about the Lincoln.
yeah, I guess actually the main, well, maybe not the main, but a big part of why that's so expensive, it's putting in,
We were asked to discuss the audio-visual upgrade proposal.
I actually think the $7,500 version is probably the most versatile. I mean, you can move it around, you can.
Yeah. Is
What
that,
would we be
something
putting
fixed
on it?
would be.
what's that?
The little thing that's before us. What would go
The
there?
conference monitor?
Yeah, the confidence.
Yeah, so any applications, so instead of having them up there, they'd be right in front of you
Yeah.
there and
We
kind of
used
like
to have the
big
just
screen.
projector on a
Yeah, so that,
gurney.
yeah.
But
not
Apparently that doesn't
everybody's gonna bring their materials though in that fashion.
Right.
So,
One of my questions is I've put a few of these systems in, conference rooms, and I'm surprised they're talking about using a projector, because everything I've done in the last 4 years, they've
all just a
all
computer.
just a
Monitor.
monitor, basically a
Yeah.
big flat screen
It's a big
TV.
flat screen TV,
Yeah.
and it's touch screen, so you just
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what the second most expensive I think is.
That's what I
I
have.
thought they were
Oh man,
projectors. I know the most expensive one mentioned a projector.
Yeah, that's the one with the
Yeah.
short throw projector.
Projector,
Right.
a screen,
I
a
just,
direct
I'm,
feed to
I mean, I don't want to second guess the people, but I'd put a bunch of them in and they're all screens now.
Yeah, that's my experience too,
Yeah.
from like
Yeah.
architecture
And then
offices.
you
Yeah.
just
This
put
is
them,
screens with the Polycom, whatever.
yeah,
Through it.
and then, you know, they
You,
can,
you don't have to worry about a projector or anything, you just,
well, it's just a little crisper and you don't have to worry about the lighting. It's
lighting,
not a
yeah.
factor either, you know? That was my only comment was,
So
we
instead of,
have the setup with a big flat screen TV, there's a computer hooked to it, but then you can use a laptop. And so you've got all kinds of versatility with it, but I don't know where it would go, but like if it went over there, it would be.
I think the notion of having it behind us, I don't think that's
Yeah,
a
I'm
great
not- I'm
idea.
not loved.
Yeah, I don't like
well,
that either.
we were gonna move the tables. Remember at that one time? It was all,
Oh,
yeah,
over this
over
side.
here.
Well, that's fine if you don't have a full house, I mean.
Yeah, it's true. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, this
That's a
allows
big-
for
that's a
many
plenty
more.
big enough wall. I mean, there's,
Yeah.
yeah, and it wasn't a big deal or anything, but it was just moving the fire alarm thing, and I can't remember
you can do that.
for
You
what.
don't need to move the fire alarm.
just like
Oh,
put it
that's
off
what
to
our-
the left.
Oh,
the
well,
right.
to
Or below it.
okay.
Offset it.
Anywhere, either side of the clock.
Yeah.
And we talked to VCAM a bunch about this as well. So the projector, I think, is a little bit more cost effective, and their theory was, so we have a projector now, but it's getting shot onto the wall, which absorbs a lot of the light instead of reflecting it, which is why, as much as you can't see it, people at home really have a tough time seeing it. So the
Yeah,
screen
you can't.
itself allows for a better
Direct,
picture,
yeah.
and then the idea is to hook up a computer, so not unlike just having a screen up there and being able to project whatever you have on the computer onto there, and so it would allow all the
Right.
applicants
You
to
can do
have their
that with it.
materials up there, and I don't know if bigger's better in this situation, but the projector would be bigger than any screen we're going to be able to actually get within the same budget. Just a thought.
Is it,
Okay.
like, who's preparing these?
I don't remember his name, but it's a consultant that was recommended to us by VCAM, who's done a bunch of work around here.
I was just
including-
wondering if they could come and we could ask questions and, you know,
Yeah.
because it's kind of hard,
To figure it out, yeah.
yeah, if you don't
Mhm.
know what the trade-offs are and
I can't.
Yeah, I think, well, we're having a meeting on the 17th, which I suppose we could kind of rework to be after work hours, and I'm pretty sure he plans on being there. So maybe if everybody,
It's a Monday, it's a week from Monday.
the 17th, if I could move the time
It'd be
later.
best for me, so
Okay.
I don't have to come all the way.
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. Alex, now.
But
You
if
can
we're
call
all
in.
gonna come, you have to, if we're all gonna come,
Oh, it's a meeting.
correct. you have
Special
to
meeting,
notice it.
24-hour notice,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I can just get a running tally, if we're actually gonna have a quorum or not, that would be helpful,
So
so.
wait, this is the next meeting this month?
No, it's
No,
not,
it would
it's
just
a,
be.
Would be just a
Next Monday. Yeah.
a special,
Monday the 17th, so a week from this Monday.
What time would it be?
well, that's what we're discussing now, it's really, we had it set for 10, just thinking that maybe Mary and Mark would come, but if you all want to be present, because I think this guy, no.
Here we have to make sure you can
After
come.
5, probably, I think probably we're
Then
supposed,
yeah, I'm totally free.
you're what?
Yeah,
Call in.
I could.
Okay,
After 5?
yeah,
I can do that.
okay, okay. So, all right, I'll try to rework that, and hopefully that'll work out.
My class gets out at 4:45, so yeah, I could be there, but
Maybe, yeah,
I just come straight here from the meeting.
okay.
Pick you up? So I have to drive back.
Chauffeur.
Fair. Just sleep over here. Mosey back to campus.
Any other
eventually.
business to take up? Anybody? Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.